The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon. I want to welcome everyone to the CartoPac for Electric Utilities webinar. Today we're going to be just covering the CartoPac applications for electric utilities. A little few housekeeping things here as far as we will be recording this webinar. We will be taking questions at the end of the webinar. We're going to try to allow for about 10 minutes at the end. So if you do have a question, you can go to the control panel that you have here for the GoToWebinar. Go ahead and ask a question, and then we will go through those at the end of the webinar. Also, too, is just so that if we can get an idea if everyone can hear us okay, there's a small hands button right next to mute all. If you can hear us okay, if you can go ahead and click that, that at least tells us that people are able to hear what we're presenting. All right, so my name is Glenn Blass, and I'm the Vice President here at CartoPac International. We are working with EDM now for about the last 18 months, and it's been just a really exciting journey to see how the technology combined with EDM's domain expertise in electric utilities have really been able to come together and bring what we believe are very compelling solutions to the market. CartoPac was founded in 1999, and we're based here in Fort Collins. EDM also being here in Fort Collins makes it very convenient, and our offices are about just 10 minutes apart. We focus on enterprise data collection and asset management solutions, and also professional services to help integrate this both traditionally in an on-premise deployment where we integrate with existing technologies, leverage off of a lot of the systems that are in place, but we're also moving more towards providing these solutions in a hosted environment. And want everyone just to keep in mind is that what Paul is showing today for the solutions that have been built are ready and available for companies to use kind of as a starting template, both in that hosted environment that I mentioned, but also installed on premise. This bubble map gives you just a little idea as far as the CartoPac deployments across the United States and a few international, really focused on primarily on the energy, utilities, and the natural resources market. I want to talk about a little bit about the core platform that's available within the CartoPac technology stack, and really when we talk about a solution, what are the components that comprise the solution? At the core of this is we leverage highly off of Esri's ArcGIS for server. We install our components in there, the server, the workflow manager, and the mobile. In these solutions that Paul's showing, they have kind of leveraged off of best practices and their domain expertise and built a T&D asset geodatabase. From that, we're able to enable the modern Windows 8 devices that have a touch interface that allow people to have larger real estate, have something that is lower cost, and still can be integrated with external GPS sensors to get high accuracy if needed. The workflows support the assets that are being managed. There is a structured process, and with just companies facing an ever-increasing large volume of data coming in from the field, CartoPac Workflow Manager supports a structured process for bringing data into an organization, creating visibility of any conditions that are noted out in the field, and ultimately that data being loaded back into the enterprise database. There are data analytics available to show the use of the system, to show metrics, and be able to identify what projects are used and what assets are mostly being collected. There are database reports that can be easily integrated with the system, allows a view to be able to see the progress on a project and see what in many times is similar to what people are seeing in a hard copy report, but now in a digital version. We integrate geoprocesses to be able to add value to the data, do automated QA/QC, and to be able to integrate with other systems. Also being able to load from a staging environment back into a production system. Everything that we've talked about here can be installed on premise, can be integrated in with existing systems, but if we were to package this up, this also can be available in a hosted environment, and we have data replications and export tools that can take the data from the hosted solution and stream that down into the enterprise database. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Paul Peterson from EDM. He's really been the champion for CartoPac and has built many of the solutions as well as helped with deployments for some of our customers.
Thanks, Glenn. So real briefly, just a little bit of background about EDM. EDM has been around for just over 30 years, and as Glenn mentioned, we are also in Fort Collins, Colorado. And EDM's specialty over the years has been related to providing solutions for transmission and distribution utilities and anything related to that. For instance, inspection and maintenance practices and technology, as well as even providing field inspections. Back just over a year ago, EDM began a partnership with CartoPac to provide our domain expertise within the transmission and distribution arena with CartoPac's expertise on software development and maintaining that software, and just providing a platform for our inspections. Now, which leads to the question, again, just going on with background, but why did EDM change over from our previous software? And I could go on for this for several slides, but I'm going to keep it to one. In a nutshell, our old software platforms that we used for field inspections and field inventories and things like that, but were just not sustainable. A lot of them were built on top of Microsoft Access, which is really no longer around in its current form. We also developed some true custom applications, which proved to be cumbersome due to long development periods and not having enough flexibility and just an inability to keep up with what Windows is doing. So we started looking for a consumer off-the-shelf software product that we could basically modify, that we could configure to accommodate our fairly wide array of different types of inspections and types of field work that we do in-house at EDM. And we eventually landed on CartoPac for a lot of reasons, but in a nutshell, because CartoPac accommodates what we like to refer to as best practices. Best practices in the database realm and the IT realm, as well as best practices for the actual field users. And so those include aspects such as being able to incorporate relational databases. So rather than collecting data to a flat file like Excel or something like that, we can support a full-blown relational one-to-many database structure. This allows us to keep a full inspection history for any given asset, as well as a full audit trail of activity at that asset. As Glenn mentioned, CartoPac accommodates staging and production environments. What this gives us is, by keeping the field data in a staging environment and then pushing it to a production database later after it's been approved, that allows all the database in the final production database to be clean, approved data. And lastly, we were able to use CartoPac to enforce coded attribute domains, to enforce specific workflows, rules at the point of field data collection, things like validations, intelligent drop-downs, things like that, in order to reduce error and improve the quality at the point of the data collection. This reduced our data QA/QC back in the office, as well as being able to follow, some of the proven workflows and best practices that have already been around. We didn't have to reinvent the wheel. So going on with things that attracted us to CartoPac that we're currently using here at EDM for our solutions, as well as what we're rolling out and some of our new template solutions that I'll touch on soon. But it's just the idea that CartoPac is a single software platform that can be configured for basically any given application. And so at EDM, we've used this for patrols, for wood pole test and treat programs, for mapping of things like wetlands within right-of-way, land ownership issues, access roads, and even doing environmental reviews, things like that. And so we've deployed CartoPac on about 15 or 16 different projects now, and then some of them are radically different from another, but it's flexible enough where we're not stuck with one configuration, but we can reconfigure almost on the fly to meet any given specification. Another aspect of CartoPac that's been appealing to us that we've used, and that's I think frankly appealing to anyone in the T&D arena, is that this integration with peripheral tools such as integrated cameras on tablets, as well as external cameras via Bluetooth or Wi-Fi, integrated or external GPS. So the idea of using, for instance, a Bluetooth Trimble GPS to get sub-meter or sub-foot accuracy on something like a Dell tablet or a Panasonic tablet. This gives greater flexibility. Integration with Bluetooth lasers, namely this LTI True Pulse laser, allows us to shoot things like pole equipment heights, offsets to assets that we can't access, maybe due to fences, things like that, as well as lateral distances between potential veg encroachments in a power line, things like that. The laser can feed directly into CartoPac. As well as integration with barcode scanners and RFID readers. The idea there is going out to an asset and scanning it, and if an asset that already has those features built in, and being able to bring that information that's embedded on the barcode or the RFID tag into CartoPac without any extra typing or work. And lastly, for EDM, we have our own product called Decalc that we use to measure wood pole strength and model defects within wood poles. And basically CartoPac opened their doors to allow us to have Decalc talk back and forth to CartoPac. So we are able to run our Decalc software and model pole strength and return those results straight into CartoPac, again, without any extra work or extra typing. And the groundwork that was laid for us to do that with Decalc is available to anyone to allow CartoPac to talk to their own external software, so it's not just limited to Decalc. Moving forward in terms of integration, I just mentioned integration of peripheral tools, and Glenn hit on this, so I'm not going to spend much time, but it was important for us to have a GIS-based mobile field data collection to integrate with GIS. And our previous solutions were non-GIS-based. They were often access-based or non-spatial solutions. But now we have a true spatial solution, which allows us to do spatial queries, show things on a map, know where the problem landowners are, symbolize inspection results or priority ratings, for instance, on the map, so they have all those visual map-based cues, as well as do things like routing and just driving to the asset efficiently. This GIS integration, as Glenn mentioned, works really well within an Esri stack, but even without Esri, CartoPac can link directly to native SQL Spatial or Oracle Spatial, which is what we're doing at ADM. For some of our internal projects, we're doing a native SQL Server Express database, which really lowers our overhead. Some of our other solutions we're integrating directly with ArcGIS Server and ArcSDE and leveraging all those Esri tools that can make things more efficient. So there's some flexibility there. CartoPac can integrate with other systems, other types of databases via scripting and transformations, things like that. So there's possibilities outside of the Esri world as well. But the basic premise here, though, in our inspections is we're going to take data out of the GIS, load it via CartoPac server onto a mobile device, perform inspections, perform inventories, record maintenance events, and then be able to take that data and put it right back into the GIS and disperse it from there. And so that keeps the data in the GIS format during the entire process. We're maintaining the data integrity, whether it be spatial accuracy, or these schemas and table relationships that have been painstakingly set up, on the server side of things. So those are some aspects that were appealing to EDM for CartoPac and that we've been using quite a bit. We've been leveraging these tools for our own internal uses, but also we've been building a new template solution that's available for anyone. And so this template solution for transmission and distribution is a comprehensive solution designed to be all-encompassing to cover things like asset inventory, pole inventory, being able to do ground patrols, record maintenance events, wood pole test and treat applications, as well as record other information related to right-of-way issues, vegetation encroachments, landowner issues, things like that. We also have a module to record environmental issues, including avian and wildlife incidents, and even modeling risk for avian incidents. And this is currently finishing up a module for substation inspection. And of course, photos are integrated in all these solutions, and we'll also have the ability to integrate other kinds of media, like plan and profile drawings, video, PDFs, things like that. Can all be part of this comprehensive solution. And so the idea of this template solution is to basically roll out the majority of what's needed for any given application, and then configure the rest to meet specific criteria and specific IT and GIS standards within any given organization. So I had mentioned the concept of best practices earlier, how that was important to us. And as we made our template solution, which I'll be showing you in a demo shortly, as we constructed our template solution, we tried to adhere to these best practice concepts as much as we could, knowing that CartoPac can accommodate what we need there. And so what you see here is an example of a best practice, which is using a relational database structure. And this is a kind of a busy diagram. I'm not going to go through all of it, but the general idea here is this is showing a transmission control database schema, and we have for any given transmission structure, we can have one or more inspections associated with that structure. And for any given inspection, we can have one or more maintenance issues associated with the inspection. We can relate one or many vegetation issues or many landowner issues to a given structure or a span. So this is showing a series of one-to-many relationships, a relational database model. Of course, photos can tie to any of these features. Moving on with other ways where we're trying to incorporate best practices, and that's just in the form setup and the workflow. How the field user moves from the user interface through the form and collects data. We want that to be easy for the field user, but also give good data back into this database structure that I mentioned earlier. So we're going for the best of both worlds here. And so what you see here in the screenshot is an example of one of our forms from a transmission control. So they're logging a maintenance issue here. And so what we're going for here with best practices is having an array of fairly large buttons that makes the form more visual to field users, and just laying everything right in front of their eyes, and hopefully streamline work. These buttons are arrayed in a way so that it starts at the top of a given structure, things like wires, moving down to insulators and conductors, down through equipment, and to the bottom of the structure down toward things like the anchor and the foundation. And so we're trying to capture a best practice field workflow of visually scanning the structure from top to bottom, assessing each component, and we reflect that on the form. Another best practice that we accommodate with CartoPac is to automatically log metadata. By metadata, I mean things like the date and time of the inspection, the name of the inspector, as well as GPS metadata, like your GPS accuracy, what kind of GPS you're using, things like that. And so this is logged automatically as soon as the form is open. They don't have to type anything in. And so we're getting easy data entry, as well as this good data integrity where we're making sure that these things are being collected for every single table record, every asset, every inspection. Another best practice is the idea of using coded drop-down. So if if you have a GIS that's already set up and you have coded attribute domains, those can be inserted straight into CartoPac. Or if you're meeting certain standards that were set up by maybe like EPRI or something like that, you're following some guidelines, those could be inserted into the CartoPac solution. We also try and go for intelligent drop-downs wherever we can. And by intelligent drop-downs, what I mean there is based on a component that I pick here, our condition drop-down would be different. So for example, if I picked an insulator as my component, the conditions that would show up in this drop-down would be different than if I picked a braced as my component. And I'll show this during the demo. We have these fields here that have asterisks by them. These are required fields, so the form will not let the user leave the form until they collect data into these required fields. This is important because sometimes you shouldn't leave an asset until certain things are collected. Not all fields need to be required, so we have some fields that are optional, such on this example we were showing cause and remedy. But these are optional fields in this example. That would be handy for things like asset management. So for cause, if you wanted to track all structure maintenance issues that were created by a given storm, or maybe that were created through vandalism events, you could track that within your asset management if you collect that data in the field, and this makes that easy to do so. In terms of maintenance, we can also track what maintenance is performed, either at the time of the inspection or that's performed later, if they come back after the inspection. And as maintenance is entered in there, that it's flagged, it's tracked, and that issue can go from an active state to a closed out or completed state based on this maintenance performed field. So just some examples of trying to follow best practices, create a good workflow, and follow standards on our actual CartoPac forms. These forms are all configured in the CartoPac Studio and can be tweaked and changed based on specific applications. And the last slide I have regarding best practices before I get into the demo is the idea of, we mentioned staging and production databases, which might be new concepts, but just the idea of having a good audit trail of all of our inspections and moving data from a staging or a temporary field database to a production or final database. And so what we're showing here is a diagram that's for CartoPac Workflow Manager. Workflow Manager, again, is configurable based on any entity's unique workflows, but this is a fairly standard or generic workflow that's a good best practice that basically funnels the data from a state of being uploaded to the field server, where it goes into the staging database. It's not necessarily clean data, but it's uploaded data that's been collected. At that point, a supervisor is prompted to review the data, either individually or in bulk. And once the supervisor approves those data, the data is flagged as ready for data loading, and there's a GIS script that would run automatically that would load those approved data into that final production database. What this means is that all data hitting the production database has been through a series of approval steps, and it is clean data at this point. We're not sending data straight from the field into a production database. Rather, we can funnel it through a series of fairly streamlined steps to ensure good data integrity. And so we're tracking not just every new record that's added, but we have a full history of every inspection, as well as every piece of that approval process. Who approved that data, when they approved it, when the data got loaded into the final database, etc. One other note on this diagram, we can also set up in CartoPac Workflow Manager automatic email triggers, where if an asset or an inspection is uploaded that meets certain criteria, maybe it's a rejected poll, maybe it's an emergency priority rating, maybe it's an environmental concern, emails can be sent to various people, supervisors, foremen, people in work order management, so that they are notified immediately of these high priority issues. And this is all configurable as well. At this point, I'm going to cut out and actually show these template solutions. I'm going to show our distribution solution, and given enough time, I'll or I'm sorry, our transmission solution. If I give enough time, I'll show some of our distribution solution as well. So I'm going to cut away out of the PowerPoint and go into my demo. And so what you're seeing now is the CartoPac server website. Again, this is web-based, where the users will go to upload and download data. It's password protected, either through a unique website-based password and username, or if you're using Active Directory, it can integrate with your existing Windows Server infrastructure. So this could be just based on logging into your computer how you normally would, and then you wouldn't have this login screen. So a variety of ways to make the data secure. So I'm going to log in as a field user. Each user can have different permissions, so some users can see different projects from others. Some users have different permissions than others, and so it's all just depending on what you need each field user to do. What we have here when you log into CartoPac Field Server is a web map. This is running off of ArcGIS Server, and on our web map we can show a variety of base maps, such as an aerial photo, or I could show a street map, things like that. And then overlaying our reference map is our actual infrastructure data. And so what you see down here is a fictitious, mocked up transmission line. I've got a transmission line with several structures on it. If I zoom to the north here, I've got a fictitious distribution network. You know, I've got some feeders and some taps, some overhead, some underground. I've got some street lights and some wood poles, as well as the substations showed here for the sake of this example. And of course, on the web map, we can pan, we can zoom in, we can zoom out. I can click on any given asset and get a pop-up that shows all the attribution. So the inventory list, or the last inspection of that asset. So this is bringing GIS to the fingertips of those who may not be GIS users currently, but you don't need any extra Esri licensing to do this. All you need is a web connection. So that's a web map in a nutshell. I'm going to perform a download, and so this is what any field inspector would do: is they would go to this website, log in, and download the database, as well as download the field forms. And we do that just by hitting this download button. This opens up basically a file transfer program called CartoPac Slide, and I can pick the projects I want to download. So I'm going to go ahead and download the electric distribution solution. And so this is bringing, again, all that data down to my mobile device, whether it's a Trimble or a Windows tablet, anything like that. So that just downloaded. And I'm going to download a second project for my transmission. I have these split out as two projects currently. Of course, you do need a Wi-Fi or a hardwire connection to do this, as well as something like a jetpack or a MiFi using 3G or 4G would work as well. I've seen field crews upload and download from their trucks using the portable hotspots. So I finished downloading, and I'm going to go ahead and start up CartoPac Mobile, otherwise known as CartoPac Tablet. This is the software that is used to, on the field device to collect data with. And what you see here is this is the new Windows 8 UI. If you're running Windows 7 or Vista, it'll just look a little bit different, but it's the same functionality. But right on my CartoPac mobile device, I've got all my main asset data, as well as a base map. Your reference data can be things like aerial photos, topo maps, road data, parcel data, whatever's part of your reference data set can be loaded into your CartoPac map. So you are effectively carrying a micro GIS. I'm going to go ahead and turn off my aerial photo here, just to make it a little bit more clear. Those can get kind of muddy over a webinar, so I'll just turn those off for now. And I'm going to go through a basic transmission inspection workflow using this template solution. So the idea is I'm going to go to my three structures I've got on this map, and I'm going to add just a ground patrol, a standard ground patrol inspection to each of these. So I'm going to click the plus button and create a new inspection. If my GPS is turned on, it's going to drop a GPS inspection marker right where I'm standing. So you do get that audit trail where the inspector was when they did the work. Of course, I'm on a laptop. I don't have a GPS, so I'm going to click on the map to manually at that point. This brings up my basic inspection form for the transmission structure. And at this point, all it's prompted me to do is, for this first inspection, this is my first structure I'm looking at, it wants to know what my patrol type is. So I'm going to pick a standard ground patrol. It's going to remember my previous selection when I go to the next structure, so I don't have to re-enter that. Now let's say I look at this structure and there's nothing wrong with it. All the components are good or like new, so which is of course going to be the majority of them in most cases. And so to log this inspection as being good, I'm just going to hit this checkbox that says no conditions found, and then click OK, and then move on. This then symbolizes the inspection with an A rating. That's using, again, our EPRI code. A is good or like new. So there's no conditions with that structure. Well, then let's say I move on to my next structure, and I add an inspection here. And let's say on this structure, I do see some conditions. But note that my patrol type has been filled in for me, so my form has enough intelligence, so I don't have to repeat that over and over. But now I do have an issue here. And so here's my main form where I would collect a maintenance issue. And let's say in this case I've got a cross arm. So I can click the cross arm button, and my next step will pop up. It's funneling me through a workflow. Position's not applicable for a cross arm. It's just the cross arm. But then I've got a series of conditions. If I clicked insulator, notice my position list will change. Let's go ahead and pick one. As well as my condition list changes. So those are those smart drop-downs I was talking about. I'm going to go back to cross arm, and I'm going to mention, let's just say we have a cracked cross arm here. I can assign an MPR rating, maintenance priority rating. It's a pretty big deal. I'm going to call this a D. We need to change this out within the next 30 days. As optional fields, I can note a cause. So let's say this is related to vandalism. We want to track that within our asset management. And the remedy is I need to replace that. That'll help us with some work planning. This is a multi-circuit line in this example, but the cross arm is not associated with any given circuit. But say if it were an insulator, I can know which circuit that insulator is for. I can hit OK, and I've now logged that deficiency. And so now I've then hit OK to finish the inspection, and now this inspection is showing up as a D rating. Okay. Then I go to my third structure on my line and do my next inspection, and I'll just say there's no conditions found here. So I just inspected 3 structures. 2 of them are fine. 1 of them had a cracked cross arm. I'm going to just click on this inspection to go back in, and of course I can go back and view and remove this if I need to. I'm going to go and add a photo. I forgot to do this earlier, but I'm going to attach a photo for this cross arm. And again, if I have an integrated camera on my tablet, I can just hit this camera icon, and that will launch my internal camera. Since I'm on a laptop, though, I'm going to browse to an image. So you could take a photo with an external camera, send it via wire or via Bluetooth to your computer if it doesn't have an integrated camera. I've even used an Android cell phone and just taken a photo with my phone and Bluetoothed it over to my computer. When I do that, I can browse to it, and there's my cracked cross arm that I took a picture of. I can note some metadata on my photo, like what direction I was facing when I took it, as well as any miscellaneous comments if I desired. So now I've logged the photo for that cross arm. So I hit OK, and I'm going to save my changes, and I'm going to exit CartoPac Mobile. And now I've collected some inspections. I've downloaded my data. I've performed inspections. And now the next step is to go back to Field Server and upload data to basically merge the data back to that central server so that everyone else can see it. So I'm going to pick my transmission project and upload it. my merge was successful. Now if I zoom into my transmission line, let's just wait for the screen to refresh, but my symbols will update. If I added any infrastructure, that would update on my web map. Zoom in one more time. There we go. So yeah, it was that middle structure that had the D rating. That's showing up on the map now. I can click on this, and I can review that inspection. So I can see that I had one condition found with that inspection. It was a ground patrol. It was a crossarm, a cracked crossarm with a NPR of D. So all that info is accessible from the web map from the inspection, whether it be the patroller needs to look at it or a foreman, supervisor, or manager. I can also use the CartoPac Workflow Manager to browse data that I've collected. So I can go to the CartoPac Workflow Manager, and from here I can filter data based on my feature type, or I can filter based on the data that was uploaded, things like that. So we can view data as a big list, and then I can click on the details, or I can click on that item, and I can see all the attribution of that inspection that I just did. If I click the Details button, if there's a photo associated with it, that photo will show up in the Attachments tab, and sure enough, there's a picture of my bad crossarm. So that's an example of what the web map can show, what CartoPac Workflow Manager can show. I can also see right in Workflow Manager what state each asset is in. So I've got a few that are in supervisor review, and a few that have only been uploaded but aren't in that review process yet. That's all configurable with the Workflow Manager as we move data from staging into production in this case. So I'm going to go back, and I'm going to download my solution again just to show you how data has moved from an active inspection to into a historic inspection, and show you some of the other features of the transmission solution. I just, right now I've only shown you inspections and logging deficiencies, but there's a bit more to it. So go through the download dialog again. Okay. And CartoPac tablet opens. I'm going to zoom in to that structure I was just looking at, and I can actually click on the structure itself and review a bunch of information that is related to that structure. This is using that one-to-many relationship, database relationship that I mentioned earlier. And so from here, I could launch a new inspection from my structure form. So that's a different way of doing what I've done previously. But I can also view or fix active maintenance issues. So here's a list of my active maintenance issues. These are unfixed issues. And so my cracked crossarm is showing up in this box here. And I can go in and I can view it, and I can perform maintenance on it and log that maintenance from this view without actually launching a new inspection. So this would be a kind of workflow where a series of deficiencies might be collected during a ground patrol season, and then they are fixed in the next month or the next several weeks as a separate series of work. So you wouldn't necessarily need to fix those via an inspection. Although we can fix it just by clicking on the structure. I've got a tab here for history, and this is showing all of my previously fixed maintenance issues. This shows a history of all the maintenance events at that structure. So you can say on such and such date and such year that looks like we fixed another cross arm. We also had a bent brace that was repaired earlier in the history. I also have a list of all my previous inspections on this structure. So this could be each inspection cycle. This could show up as a separate record. The field user can click on each one and see what the issues were. So I can say on this particular date, there was that's when the cross arm and a brace were both noted during that particular ground patrol. So we are showing that full audit history of the structure. I've got tabs to note landowner issues, tabs to note right-of-way issues, vegetation issues, things like that. So let me just show you how we can do some of this. I can add I'm going to go ahead and let's lay down a vegetation issue. We have a vegetation encroachment here. And so I'm going to click Add. It's going to drop a GPS point for that vegetation issue. And I'm going to say, well, it's, I've got a list of vegetation condition types. We say we have a series of trees encroaching on conductors. And these are predominantly, kind of a fast-growing species like cottonwood. We want to address that soon. I can note the line voltage as well as the conductor clearance. So this is 10 feet away from getting into those conductors. I can also note the temperature, which of course influences things like sag, as well as an approximate number of trees that we're talking about. And lastly, I can give a maintenance priority rating. I need to address this pretty soon. So I can note the veg issue right here, and I can also add a polygon on the map to basically delineate the trees on a map that are the problem. So I can draw on a polygon that encompasses our trees, and then hit OK. So now we have a record showing what the problem is, as well as a spatial area representation that could be put on a map and given to a contractor. Say, hey, go here, we need to trim these trees or cut them back. So there I've logged a vegetation issue. I can do similar things with contact issue, and for the sake of time I'll go through this pretty quickly, but let's say we have a problem landowner. So I can say that this is a landowner. His name is Joe Landowner. I can insert phone number for contact and what the restriction is. This person wants to be contacted before you do any activity on the land. And contact before, call cell, and I can add a comment. Like the veg issue, I can also draw a polygon, say, well, this guy's land extends from here up to here on the map. That way, when the field inspectors go back on subsequent patrols, they know when and where, or at what point they're entering the person's land and leaving their land. So we have a good boundary drawn in. So I've got a veg issue, I've got a landowner issue noted on the map. Moving on to my other tabs, just very briefly, I can also add ground line inspections. And so on here I can note the inspection types. Let's say we're doing a full dig. I note the species. I can note the original preservative, class, year of the pull. I've got some intelligence built in since I noted it was a full dig. The setting has to be dirt, but if I said it was a sound and bore, then my choice is, asphalt would be a more correct choice. So we can filter our drop-downs based on prior choices. I can note a ground line circumference, and then at that point, I can launch decalc to note any kind of deficiency that I see or a defect. So if I want to note heart rot, I can launch decalc. So this is EDM's decalc product, and I can model that heart damage. So let's say I've got 3 inches of remaining shell. I can note that, and that'll model what that damage looks like. I can log it. It returns to me, hey, 81% of the remaining strength of the pole is there, which makes it a pass pole. If it had been less than 70%, it would have been a reject. So we can insert that kind of criteria. Since it's a pass pole, we are going to treat it with a fumigant. And since there's a void, we are going to apply internal treatment as well. Again, if this were a full dig, then we would also do external treatment. So just some examples of some intelligent drop-downs there. I'm not going to dwell on this tab much, but we do have a module for assessing collision risk on transmission lines, as well as electrocution risk on distribution lines, and as well as a way to note any kind of avian or wildlife incidents, whether it be a nest or a wounded bird or something like that. I hit OK, and I'm going to upload again. And finish. And again, now when I zoom back into my map, my contact or my parcel is showing up, as well as my tree clearing area is showing up on my web map. Okay. So that's a lot of our transmission solution in a nutshell. For the last probably a couple minutes, I'm going to move on to the distribution solution, which I've already downloaded, and I'm going to keep this brief so we can field some questions. But I've already downloaded our distribution solution, so I'm going to go straight into the CartoPac tablet and open that up. And open up this distribution project. And so the distribution is set up to do a full inventory. You can inventory all your distribution poles, all your streetlights, whether you want to do the recreational grade accuracy, 3 to 5 meters for a tablet, or you can hook it up to a Trimble and get sub-foot or sub-meter. But I can just go and add a pole, so I can add a new inventory item here. And I can log the structure number, the material, original treatment, things like that that you would associate with your core GIS table for a given pole. For the sake of time, I'm not gonna enter all of these. But so I've got some of the basic information in there. And then I can add inventory items. So if you want to inventory the equipment and framing and things like that, I can go and I can note that I've got a guy in place, down guy. There's 2 of them, and I can even log the date that it was installed. If I'm using a laser, I can measure the height of that guy attachment with my LTI laser, or I can use a hot stick and get it that way and add in a height there. I can go and hit the new button and keep entering more information, so I can enter a cross arm, wood cross arm 1 with an installation date. I can hit new and then add some equipment. So let's say I've got some transformers. So again, we're going with the big visual button-based approach here to make this easier for the field user. And just hopefully streamline the process. So I hit OK, and now I've got 3 inventory items associated with this pole. Of course, we can also add in wires and insulator types as well. With the sake of time, I'll just keep it there. I can also do the heights from this main form, so I could do the transformer height from here as well. So a few different ways of doing it. The ground line inspection I already showed you from the transmission solution. Logging maintenance issues is pretty similar to what I showed for the transmission, except this is specific to distribution. So we have all of our equipment and things like that. So I can log a transformer condition, say on our middle transformer, and give it an MPR. And as things are fixed, if I were to go back or fix that on the fly, I can say that the maintenance was performed. And then when I upload and re-download, it's going to move over to this completed or fixed maintenance issue box, so we can see the full history of that item. We have a tab for landowner info, similar, or actually the same as what I showed you for transmission. I already mentioned the bird and animal module. And then also we have a module for storm response, where the idea of this is if a large storm comes through, takes out a whole line or quite a few poles, maybe it's a hurricane, tornado, something like that. You can put this in the hands of someone who can just do a quick and dirty assessment of what's been damaged and what hasn't. So they can add a new storm inspection. They can load the inventory that was already collected from the inventory tab, and then assess whether these things are okay or if they need to be replaced. Or you can do it all in one fell swoop, and you could say all okay, or you hit the button that says all repair or all replace, and just minimize the amount of clicks that the inspector needs to do. You can also note if veg clearing is needed. We can draw an extent for that veg clearing, or for the issue that was affected. You can draw a polygon around the area that's affected by the storm, and I could say how many poles were impacted, and as well as a comment. Just say replace all. And now we've done a very quick and dirty inspection saying, hey, everything in this line that I've circled, this polygon, has been taken out. We need to do maintenance on it. Of course, I can attach photos to any of these. So I can attach a photo for our or a storm. Okay. And the last thing I show before I'm done with the demo is our streetlight module. And so I've got some streetlights shown here on the west edge. Let's get the base map on. There we go. And so again, I can just click on one of these streetlights, or I can add a new streetlight. And actually, I'm going to click on a different one. From this view, I can view the history of all my previous visual inspections. If you've been doing ultrasonic inspections, we can view the ultrasonic test results, the history there, as well as the full maintenance history on that given streetlight. And as well as, of course, viewing history, we can also add new inspections and new maintenance events. So I can add a new visual inspection. Let's say if there's a bad coating condition, this would be one where it would be determined to be replaced critical. So I can log a few other things of the inspection. I can log if there's anything hung on the street light that could be stressing it. Of course, that can change over time. And of course, I can take a photo. There's a photo of my street light. And now I've added a new visual inspection. And so this is going to be a photo that, actually this is one that would trigger an email because the status is replaced critical. So when I upload this, I'll be getting an email. So we're about out of time on the demo, but that's basically what these two solutions are comprised of. I also mentioned we just finished a substation inspection module that we're not showing. But if you're interested in seeing either that or some of the environmental parts of the avian module or environmental module, just let me know and I can show you that. And then the last thing I'm going to show is the idea of reporting. Reporting comes up a lot. It's like, okay, we've collected data, we've loaded it into GIS. How do I, a non-GIS person, see this data? And so you can build in reporting into the CartoPac field server. We tend to use SSRS a lot, SQL Server Reporting Services. Crystal Reports is also common, but we can lock into those using those tools. And so here's a couple examples of some reports we're running at EDM using SQL Server reporting tools with our CartoPac data. You can access this right from our CartoPac website. So this is a report showing production for each day for each inspector, as well as a little gauge here showing overall progress in our test and treat project. Here's another, this is a dashboard that's showing these various gauges show amount completeness of all of our circuits in this project. So I've got one circuit that's 100% complete. This one's about 80% complete, and our overall project is about 15% complete. So really handy for managers is to have this at their fingertips using live data. These guys are uploading every day, so this changes. This is a report that's a deliverable product, so I can filter on inspector name, or I can filter on recommended actions. So I can show all rejects or all pass pulls, things like that. I can then export this to PDF, Excel, or Word. And lastly, another example report. This is a report showing rejected wood pulls based on a test and treat. And so we're actually showing the photo taken by CartoPac as well as a little overview map and synopsis of what was wrong with that pole in terms of decay and band lines and things like that. So those are things that you can do with reporting, and those are all available. So with that, turn it back to Glenn.
Great. Well, thank you, Paul, and I think that's, there's an awful lot of information that's shared, but hopefully what you guys are seeing is that this is very complete, that there are really best practices that are implemented throughout. There's a lot of integrity in the data being collected with the rules being enforced and the intelligence. And, we have proven metrics of improving productivity in the field by as much as 50% and eliminating what happens of bringing that data back to the office, of streamlining that and improving that by as much as 90%. So hopefully what you're seeing is that the combination of the domain expertise that EDM brings, as well as the CartoPac technology, is this provides an excellent foundation for utilities to be able to implement this type of workflow. Want to just remind you that if you have questions to ask while we're going through this last slide, if you'd go ahead and click on there and go ahead and submit a question, we're going to get to that here next. Wrapping all this up as we kind of went through the diagram earlier in the presentation, and really this is available now. When Paul says that these are templates, these are solutions, this is available in an environment that makes it very easy for companies to be able to look at, evaluate, determine how well it fits within their organization. It can be done in a hosted environment so that it eliminates the short-term impact on IT. It can also be fully deployed on-premise. So if you do have an interest in seeing how this can be used, Paul's contact information will be shared here at the end of the presentation. So let me go ahead and look here while we're doing that and see what we've got from a question standpoint. All right, so we've got a question as far as, I think it was asked earlier on in the presentation, was really what is available for reporting. And what we have is, as Paul mentioned, is that is within the Microsoft SQL SSRS or SQL Server Reporting Services. There are some blank templates that are available in the solution, as well as customization that can be done to be able to make additional reports as needed. Next question we have here as far as would be is what mobile devices are supported by CartoPac?
Yeah, presently CartoPac is supported on Windows Vista 7 and 8, and also the Windows mobile platform. I think Windows Mobile 5.5, 6, and 6.5 as far as on Trimble devices, Leica devices, such as that.
Okay. And as Paul, as you saw here, is that there's two versions of the tablet interface. There's what's available in the Windows 8, or what we would call more of the modern UI, but we also do have a legacy template that allows us to legacy UI that is used in the workflow, and the components configured are the same. Well, I think that does it for our presentation today. Want to remind everyone is that a week from today, there is a digital as-built for gas distribution that's being presented by Christine from SourceGas, really looking as far as how they've implemented CartoPac for their utilities and how that's being used in their organization, both kind of in their early term deployments and how they're planning to use that. So I really thank everyone for their time, for their attention, and we will close this webinar at this time.